Hey there, I'm Dominic Cioli, one of your two co-hosts. I wanted to kind of lead this episode off by telling you a couple quick things. One, in case you haven't noticed over the past one episode, if you scroll down a bit under the video, you can see show notes. That's mostly links to stuff we talk about, whether it's pictures or articles or whatever. Also, contact information, the link to Jack's comic, stuff like that. And number two is that this podcast has, like we predicted, some swearing and some spoilers for Age of Ultron and Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman and some other stuff. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, I'm Dominic Cioli.
And I'm Jack Cioli.
And this is the Super Cioli Bros podcast. If you listened to our podcast last week, you know that this week we're going to be talking about the DC Cinematic Universe, which is just starting. But first, yesterday, we are recording this on Thursday. Yesterday was Wednesday. The first trailer for Avengers 2: Age of Ultron got leaked, and then Marvel just eventually released it officially. They didn't want to fight the leak. So Jack and I have been geeking out about that for a while, so we're going to talk about that real quick before we get into the DC movies. So Jack, what are your first thoughts on the Ultron trailer?
Well, I think I've watched it probably like 15 times now, and I love it. I am so pumped.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's just so good.
I said this on Facebook, but probably my absolute favorite thing about it is that it uses Disney as Marvel's corporate owner in literally the best possible way.
Which is?
Well, they have the song from Pinocchio being sung by children in the background of the trailer. I got no strings, hold me down thing. And then at the end, Ultron himself quotes that.
And it's just such a perfect quote for what Ultron is going to be in this movie.
It is. It's this quote that, makes us think of a children's cartoon. But then coming from him in that context, it's very scary. And I think that's cool. Like, it's cool to see Disney using, referencing their own previous material in a new context to create a different idea, to like reinforce a different idea.
Mm-hmm. So now, there's obviously going to be a spoiler warning at the top of the show, like there was last week. But so basically, what we know about this movie, especially in the context of Ultron, is that more or less he's going to be kind of like Tony is making him as like a peacekeeping force to kind of replace the Avengers, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I think the official synopsis mentions that he revives this old project, which implies that maybe his dad and Hank Pym in the past originally created the AI of Ultron, and he just soups it up and gives it armor and stuff, and then makes it go crazy.
So that awesome line, which is what is it? I'm free.
Yeah, now I'm free. I've got no strings on me.
Yeah, it refers in a perfect way to Ultron, kind of like becoming. I don't know. I mean, I guess he's already kind of sentient, but what would the word be?
Self-reliant. Like he's at that, because earlier in the trailer we see like a proto-Ultron who's made of like smashed up Iron Man parts. And that's where he delivers like the first line, because the whole trailer has this theme about puppets going on and stuff with these lines from Ultron, and then at that point, at the very end, when he actually quotes the line, he's like in a new, like remodeled version of himself that he's made. So it implies, he starts and he's, just another puppet like everyone else, and created by Tony Stark and all that stuff, and then he becomes his own thing, and it's very scary and awesome.
Yeah, and he looks. I mean, at the end there when we see like Ultron, he looks so good. I've like a very minor complaint about having irises, but I mean it's not like something that pisses me off. I just think he would look better without the irises. But I mean, he looks so damn good.
It gives him. I think it'll give him, some opportunity for more expressive things than if he had just had solid eyes. But I mean, because what I really love about it is that Marvel is having their cake and eating it too in a way that makes perfect sense. Because they have this Ultron who's like the Ultron, and he's got, like you said, he's got irises. He has a mouth that like works, because comic Ultron's mouth is permanently this giant like freak, and so, but you see the indications of that shape on his face. So like they're referencing those, that design, but he has a functioning mouth. But then you see his like army of like Ultron bots, and they look exactly like he looks in the comics.
Yeah, that the Ultron bots look really cool too. I mean, everything looks so good.
Everything does look really good, and it just looks like it's going to be really exciting. Is it April yet?
Unfortunately, not. But like the Hulkbuster Iron Man suit looks amazing too.
Yeah.
And that fight looks like it's going to be incredible.
I love that my favorite thing about the Hulkbuster is that it's an Iron Man armor that Tony makes for his Iron Man armor.
Yeah.
Like, and they didn't like shy away from that by just making like a different suit but bigger, Like they literally just made a suit that goes on top of his other suit.
I'm excited to see what the context for that fight is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, just from the trailer, it looks like Banner is losing his grip a little bit on the Hulk. Like he's like freaking out in most of that trailer.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting because I mean, one of the big like reveals in the Avengers was that he can kind of control when he becomes the Hulk. Through that really cool scene where he punches the
Leviathan thing.
Yeah. But so it'll be interesting to see how he comes unglued like that, where he end up fighting the Avengers.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a lot of really cool, just really awesome character things going on, like Black Widow, coming down with that motorcycle, and there's another shot of her at one point with Cap's shield on the motorcycle. That all looks awesome.
And the scene in the Winter Forest with Hawkeye looks awesome. I'm guessing that's at the beginning when they take on
Hydra remnants and Baron Strucker. Yeah. I really like Hawkeye's new look too.
Yeah, that like the trench coat thing looks awesome.
Yeah, like it looks really cool. And it also like his regular suit looks cool, but it looks like if you slammed tactical gear together with superhero stuff, that's what you would get.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like kind of silly in a way that you would never have in real life, but I love that.
Yeah.
Like, why would he ever wear this like cloak, trench coat, skirt thing? Never. But it looks awesome.
Yeah, and that's a complaint that you and I have about a lot of these superhero movies, mostly the X-Men movies and the new Fantastic Four movie, which is going to come out eventually. We
don't technically know that yet about the Fantastic Four.
Well, from what I've read, the thing about them wearing hazmat suits, come on.
Okay, that is true.
But like, a lot of these superhero movies like shy away from comic book costumes because they're too silly. They don't make sense in the real world, and it's just nice to see Marvel kind of doing that with like embracing nobody would actually wear this costume with Hawkeye. And obviously this is the first trailer. There's going to be more, but I kind of like that we don't see the Vision at all.
Yeah, like I want to really bad, because I want to see how he looks. But I mean, we've seen like bits of concept art and stuff, and my absolute favorite thing about the Vision in this movie is that he's gonna have a cape, and that's amazing.
Yeah. Another example of something that, not to throw stones, but something that Fox would never do.
Yeah, exactly.
Just for those of you who might not know, Fox is the company that makes the X-Men movies and the Fantastic Four movies.
Yes, and they don't like costumes because they're lame.
Very lame. Is there anything else we wanted to talk about with the trailer?
We see brief glimpses of the twins, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and they look pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see more of the speed effect for Quicksilver because so far we just saw like brief kind of like slow-mo bits with it because it's a trailer, so it's a lot of quick cuts of action and stuff. But I mean, I just love super speed, and I want to see it. I want to see how they translate it. I hope it's not just a bunch of like everyone becomes slow mo and he doesn't become slow mo. You know, like I like seeing the speed. You know.
Yeah. And we talked about before privately that like that big panning shot in the Avengers when it like one continuous. I don't want to. I guess I don't know if I can call it a one continuous take since like 90% of it is computer generated. But when it's just panning through all the Avengers fighting.
Yeah,
Like,
and they all like get a little like teamwork moment with someone else.
yeah, like that kind of shot is perfect for someone with super speed because he can just be in the background of every shot. He never has to be especially focused on, but just zooming through the background.
Yeah, or like it can start with him and he does some super speed thing and then zooms off screen as the camera pans to someone else. Then he can zip back on screen like all over the place. Man, I hope they do something like that again. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, Joss Whedon loves those kind of shots, so I'm almost positive that we'll see something like that. I think we're kind of near the end. I mean, we just broke down a 2-minute trailer for 10 minutes, so
yeah, we can probably move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the main point of this podcast, which is the DC the DC cinematic universe.
Yes.
Now we'll try not to talk about Man of Steel too much since it has already happened, but Man of Steel starts this new universe, so it's impossible to ignore. But we'll try to keep the conversation on Man of Steel just to things that are relevant to the universe moving forward. Jack and I have a lot of problems with Man of Steel, most of which are within itself. So we'll try not to talk about those too much, but some of them will have to be brought up.
So I think the biggest one is also one of our biggest complaints with it, which is the final act of the movie.
Yes, the big Superman versus General Zod fight.
Yeah, where they level Metropolis.
Yes, where now Zack Snyder has said that in that massive fight, only about 2,500 people died. He knows nothing about how cities work because like half of that city gets destroyed.
Metropolis, yeah, like literally pounded to dust. Like there's a part where Superman and Zod are in this huge clearing that's just flat and dust is flying everywhere because whatever used to be there has been ground into microscopic particles.
Yeah, and among those things that have been ground into microscopic particles is assumably like 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Like Chicago has like what? I think Chicago has like 3 million people in it or something. I mean, I live in this city right now. I don't know, and I'm not going to look it up right now. But I mean, New York is like 8 million. I think it's a safe bet that Chicago's like 2 or 3. Chicago is not nearly as like dense as that movie in those panning shots make Metropolis seem. And so like wiping out like 3 blocks of downtown Chicago would probably kill about 2,500 people. Wiping out, I don't know, 2/3 of, maybe not 2/3, but like, I don't know, 2/5 of Metropolis is going to kill like, I don't know, more than 100,000 people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, how many? You once told me statistics of the number of people that died in the the attacks on September 11th.
Yeah,
And that was
September 11th in New York. That killed about 2,000 people. That was 2 buildings and a couple smaller buildings around it.
Yeah, and we see way more than that number of buildings go down in Man of Steel. And that's another issue with Man of Steel, is that it plays off of that 9/11 imagery in a way that's just very exploitative.
Yeah, the scene with Perry White and that lady whose name I forget, but when them running in front of that building collapsing, that is like 9/11 imagery 101.
Yeah. Her name's Jenny.
Jenny.
But yeah, like I think the biggest issue that this presents in terms of laying the foundation for the DC universe is that the first thing Superman does is kind of participate in destroying a city. And that's how they've... So I guess that brings us to the next movie that they're going with in this universe, right?
Yeah. Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Steel, coming out in 2016.
So Dawn of
Justice. I'm sorry about that.
Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. It appears like Batman is going to be... I mean, obviously, Batman versus Superman, they're going to be adversaries for some portion of this movie. And it would make sense that the catalyst for that is, in a lot of ways, Superman destroying a city. Which means that in a complete polar reversal of DC's comics universe, Superman will be getting moral lectures from Batman about...
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, I guess it's Snyder and Goyer, David Goyer, the guy who wrote it, Zack Snyder, the guy who directed it, either not getting Superman or just not liking Superman. That they, like, Superman is, obviously, he was the first superhero really ever created. And he is the moral center of DC's universe.
Yeah, like, Superman's whole deal, the thing that people don't seem to get whenever they say that he's boring or that no one would ever act like that if they had all his powers, is that that's the point. Like, the thing that makes Superman really interesting and exciting and inspirational is the fact that he's just a regular guy. You know, he grew up in Kansas, who has these, like, phenomenal, unstoppable powers, and he uses them for good. Like, he refuses to use them to hurt people or to take advantage of people. Like, that phrase of absolute power corrupts absolutely, unless you're Superman. Like, yeah. That is the point.
And, like, one of the biggest problems with that phrase, it's not realistic that someone would have that much power and be that good, is if you come into any superhero movie demanding strict realism, then you are going into it with the completely wrong mindset. They're not documentaries. They're fictional stories.
And it's a cynicism that really has no place in superhero fiction. Like, superheroes are all about these aspirational figures that we want to be like. You know, like, they do good, they protect people, they save people from danger, they fight bad guys. That is what their whole deal is. So if you go into that thinking, well, no one would really be this good. If a real person had these powers, then they would, you know, probably just murder the bad guy because they'd have to. That misses the point in a big way.
Yeah, and what you just said is another huge problem with Man of Steel, is that General Zod says, the only way you'll ever stop me is if you kill me. And then Superman proves him right, because the only way he can figure out how to stop him is to kill him. Yeah,
Superman literally responds to that and says, "You're right, villain of this movie. I'm going to do exactly what you say.
I'll just break your neck."
So yes, we've probably vented about that movie enough. Basically, the foundation that they've laid for this universe is Superman leveling a city and murdering the bad guy on his first day. So
yeah, literally his first day as Superman. Like he puts the costume on like 12 hours before that fight starts?
probably something like that. So then we get.
But then another part of the problem that Snyder and Goyer are either oblivious or just stupid is that there are scenes that we've seen behind the scenes pictures where there's like a big statue of Superman in Metropolis. But like there's no real reason for Metropolisites, people in Metropolis.
Metropolitans.
Oh yeah, that's good. For them to want to put up a statue of Superman because
he destroyed their city.
Yeah, like he won the fight, but that doesn't necessarily make him a hero in the sense that those people would want to make a statue out of him or of him.
Yeah, that seems symptomatic of Snyder and Goyer being just completely tone deaf in what they're doing. But moving on from that, yeah, so it seems pretty clear that the catalyst for Batman showing up is to come wag his finger at Superman. We know that, Lex Luthor is in the movie, and so is Wonder Woman.
And so is Aquaman.
Well,
and so we'll get there later. I have something to say.
Okay.
We'll get there later.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's pretty much all we know about Batman vs Superman. Like, we don't really have many details about the movie itself.
Okay, I'll just say it here then. Like, Batman, Superman, Lex Luthor, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman are all in this movie in some capacity.
Yeah, but
what on earth is this movie even gonna be about? Like, I know that Aquaman isn't gonna be like, he isn't gonna have a huge role, but he's gonna be in it somehow.
Well, I feel like Aquaman's presence, same to Cyborg's, is gonna be on the level of like Nick Fury at the end of Iron Man, or even Nick Fury in Iron Man 2. Like, they're there, but they're not really part of the plot, you know?
I don't know. Nick Fury was kind of a big part of the plot in Iron Man 2.
Okay, that's true. I'll retract that then. But they're basically just going to be cameos as an epilogue to introduce, the concept of the Justice League. I don't think that needs to really be a factor in what we're talking about.
That is the only way them being in it could make any sense. At least those two. But we know Wonder Woman is going to play a fairly significant role.
Yes, she is.
So that's the one that's going to be the big part of confusion. Because, like, they're going to have to introduce... I mean, obviously at this point, hopefully they don't dwell on introducing Batman too much, because obviously we had 3 Batman movies, like, that ended, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Nobody at this stage needs a Batman origin story in a movie. So hopefully they just throw Batman at us and don't explain him, because we don't need him to be explained. But,
yeah, and even Wonder Woman, I feel like they can just take a cursory explanation of. Like, one thing that I've been advocating for a while now, and actually before Man of Steel even came out, is that I don't think we need origin stories as much as Hollywood thinks we need them. Like, I think we can jump into a story and kind of just explain the fact that this universe has a variety of crazy shit going on, and give a cursory explanation that you can then explore in more detail later.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't need it. So,
and that is something that I think this universe is going to do fairly well, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
So I think just one thing I wanted to touch on from what we do know of Batman versus Superman. Well, 2 things, I suppose. One, like you said, Wonder Woman is a major part of the movie, it seems, but she doesn't get to be in the title, which bothers me. I hate the title a lot, like, beyond reason. I think Dawn of Justice is a stupid tagline. I think Batman versus Superman is dumb because it's 2 heroes. You have 2 heroes in your title, and you're gonna make them fight each other. But then 3, Wonder Woman appears to have a fairly major role in this movie, and she doesn't even get to be in the title.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess luckily she does have her own movie coming out a year after this particular movie. So I guess that's kind of a silver lining. But
then the other thing I wanted to say is we have seen photos of those 3 primary characters, and I have issues with them tonally, because I think they present a perfect picture of what's unappealing about DC's aesthetic right now, which is that they have almost no color in them. All 3 of the characters look deadly serious, and in 2 of them, it looked like, in one of them, Wonder Woman is standing in the ruins of a city that appeared to have just blown up seconds ago. Like, there's fire, she's clearly lit by fire, there's like twisted rebar, so she's not anywhere but in some kind of developed area.
There's like ash in the air.
What?
There's ash in the air.
Right, yeah, ash in the air, exactly. See, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, interesting, she's, on a volcano or something. But no, there's twisted rebar. Fucking city. But anyway, Batman is like sulking next to the Batmobile in complete black and white, and Superman is staring at the camera with this weird expression that seems to be a combination of like sadness and like seriousness, like grimness. And again, he's got like no color in his costume. Wonder Woman has no color in her costume. Batman's photo, like I said, is literally in black and white. Like, have a little fun with this shit. I mean, you're giving us a movie about a dude who dresses up as a bat to punch psychotic clowns in the face. A guy who can fly. And a woman who's from a Greek, like, warrior island and who leaves to go, like, help people.
Yeah, it's that same thing about, like we said earlier, about these movies having to be realistic. And like no one would wear these bright colors. Come on, no one would do that. It's just, and about it being so damn serious. There's admittedly it's a rumor, but there's this rumor going around that there's a no joke policy on Dawn of Justice, which, like, it's DC trying to be different from Marvel, because Marvel's movies are all really lighthearted. I mean, Marvel's movies are serious. Like, watch Winter Soldier. That is a serious movie. But they're also lighthearted at the same time. DC, I guess, is just trying to, like, create their own identity and just be dead serious, but it's not appealing at all.
It's not appealing, and it's also not what anybody wants out of this stuff. Like, nobody wants to go see a Superman movie. It's Superman. His name is silly as hell. So is Batman. So is Wonder Woman's. These things are silly. Like, we know that. We're already willing to embrace that fact and just enjoy it for what it is. But with all of this weird, like, posturing and like, embarrassment that DC, it feels like they have for these characters and concepts, it's really upsetting.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it. You mentioned earlier about Snyder being tone deaf. Like, one of the things that pissed the hell out of me, he tweeted, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. He must be a big Star Wars fan, but he tweeted a picture of Superman, like with like a Jedi hood and a lightsaber, and he hashtagged it Super Jedi or something. But here's the deal: that picture, Superman was holding a red lightsaber. That is what the villains use in Star Wars.
Yeah, he's holding it up to his face. He's not lit by anything but the red lightsaber, and he's holding it up. You know, he's got the hood on. He looks like it looks like Clark is cosplaying as Emperor Palpatine. And And yeah, it is hilarious. Like I saw that and I spent just like 15 minutes cracking up about how perfect it was of just an a window into the mind of this twisted soul.
It's just he's so like 90s bro. Like, oh yeah, this looks totally rad.
Yeah, give Superman that red lightsaber because that looks sick.
It's just it's just this guy who has no idea what the F he's doing.
So pair that with David Goyer, who is also terrible, and this is the stuff we're gonna get. But so anyway, we've complained for quite a long time about just these two movies, but recently, DC has announced their slate of movies from 2016 all the way through 2020, and there's actually some reason to be cautiously optimistic, and I'll even go so far as to say excited about some of these.
Yeah, definitely. And
So
luckily, Snyder and Goyer aren't going to be attached to all of them, which is
yeah,
the best possible thing that could happen.
it is the best possible thing because it is physically with this schedule that DC has announced, it's physically impossible for them to make all of these movies, which means some of them could very well be good.
So let's start with I'll post a link to this list, the one that I'm looking at from comicbookresources.com. But the very first one after Batman vs. Superman is probably the most surprising one, I think, and that is Suicide Squad, which comes out the same year as Dawn of Justice, 2016.
Yeah, I found that one really surprising too. I think it's weird that they're going ahead with a Suicide Squad movie before really any of these other characters who would, I don't know, probably be more marketable. But I mean, I think the Suicide Squad as a concept is pretty interesting, and if they can make a good movie out of it, I would be pleasantly surprised, and that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah,
But
for those of you who don't know, the Suicide Squad is essentially a group of supervillains or just villains who, they're coerced because they have bombs in their head that.
Yeah, they're basically taken by a government organization and forced to go on like Black Ops missions for them under penalty of death. And it's, what I've read about it, about like the comic series and stuff, is that they have a really interesting, clash of personalities and characters and stuff. So if they can be faithful to that type of thing and adapt it to the big screen, it could be cool. And I've heard it described as like the Dirty Dozen. And it could be like a heist type movie with these kind of morally scrupulous characters, but in like a superhero setting, which could be really fun.
Yeah, it does seem like it has a lot of potential to be entertaining. I'm not familiar with the director. His name is David Ayer. Are you?
No, that does not sound familiar to me.
Well, hopefully he does a good job. One thing that I'm curious about it though is, do you think that in Dawn of Justice they're gonna introduce Argus at all, or are they just gonna just throw everything at us in Suicide Squad, just make us accept the whatever governmental organization they're gonna use? Which I personally, I'm fine either way, but I would be surprised if they somehow don't try to make some sort of foundation in Dawn of Justice.
It seems like they could do it pretty easily, the same way that like Man of Steel referenced LexCorp pretty subtly, and even Wayne Enterprises pretty subtly. Mm-hmm. I think they could do something like that in Man of Steel in Dawn of Justice that wouldn't require a ton of explanation or screen time.
So after Suicide Squad, the next movie, 2017, is the Wonder Woman solo movie.
Yes, which is really cool. And this is something that I wanted to bring up about this whole schedule of movies. One thing that Marvel has taken some heat for recently is their seeming reluctance to kind of fully commit to a movie led by a female hero or led by a character of color. One kind of common complaint about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that it's very white, with the exception of Nick Fury, and that's pretty legit. But one thing that we're getting from DC is this Wonder Woman movie, which is, coming right after or right before Justice League, which should be really cool. And it's long overdue for her to get a movie. And then Aquaman, which we can cover, I guess, more in a second. But the guy who they've cast as Aquaman, Jason Momoa, is I believe he's Hawaiian, but he has some Polynesian heritage. So he's a person of color being cast in a traditionally white role, which is really exciting. He is getting his own movie. And then 2020 has a Cyborg solo movie, and he's a black character, so that should be pretty cool. And then Shazam, the villain, like the lead villain in that movie, is going to be played by The Rock, who's another person of color. So there's like a lot of diversity that seems to be coming up to the forefront in this DC Universe announcement, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and also in 2020 is Green Lantern, and that could easily be a minority character as well. There are two black Green Lanterns in the comics right now.
Yeah. One's Middle Eastern, isn't he?
Oh, I think he's black, and I think he's black, but I think he's a Muslim.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he's Middle Eastern or not. I don't know. I don't really read Green Lantern comics, to be honest.
I don't either, but yeah, like that's a very good point. Green Lantern, and I've actually read some speculation that they might shy away from, Hal Jordan again, since that movie did so poorly. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be like, despite how much we complained about Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice, I think there is a lot to be excited about with the announcement of all these other movies in DC's cinematic universe.
Mm-hmm. So
a lot to be hopeful for.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But obviously for a lot of these, it's going to be hard to project anything because we don't even know. We don't know who is gonna. Nobody has been cast in Green Lantern yet. We only know one person who for sure is going to be in Wonder Woman, and that's Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman. So it's like impossible to try to guess what these movies are going to be about, for the most part. But like one that we should be able to, one that you and I will most easily be able to talk about is the Justice League movie, the first one, which also comes out in 2017. But is there anything else you wanted to say about Wonder Woman? I know we kind of brought that up, and then we talked about diversity real quick, and then never came back to it.
Yeah, I don't. It's like you said, we don't really know enough to be able to speculate. We don't know who's directing. We don't know who's writing it. We don't know any story details because it's 3 years from now. So, it's tough to say other than yay.
Yeah. Well, I guess we do know for sure that in Dawn of Justice, Wonder Woman is going to be, her origin story is that she's a demigod, daughter of Zeus. Which is her new 52 origin. Her original origin was kind of different, but not enough to warrant talking about right now, I don't think. But so Wonder Woman is almost definitely going to be, hopefully, about like on the myth side, right? Do you think? Like,
I think that movie will incorporate a lot more Greek mythology and fantasy elements than typical. It'll probably be similar to Thor, honestly, in terms of showing us a different side to superheroics. Like Thor, we've got kind of an interesting blend of sci-fi and mythology, and I think we're going to get not necessarily the sci-fi angle, but we're going to get to see some of that cool kind of mythology through the lens of a superhero story kind of stuff, which should be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving on to the other movie from DC that comes out in 2017 is the first Justice League movie.
Yeah, and this is one, both, I don't know about both, I suppose, but this is one of the movies from this list that I'm still really worried about because it's already been confirmed that Zack Snyder and David Goyer are attached to this movie as well.
This list that I have also has them on the second Justice League movie as well.
Okay, well that's really disappointing. But so basically, I'm excited about all of the solo movies on this list, and very worried about the team-up movies, the Justice League movies, because I think those are very likely to follow tighter in the footsteps of what Snyder and Goyer are already doing, which is bleak and depressing and angst-filled.
Yeah, one can hope that maybe in the next 3 years, I guess aesthetic, whatever you want to call it, will change. But I wouldn't hold my breath personally.
No, I would not either.
Now, what's interesting is on this list from Comic Book Resources, the thing it says Justice League Part 1, directed by Zack Snyder, with Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, and Amy Adams reprising their roles. It doesn't say anything about Gal Gadot, which makes no sense. I assume that's just like a mistake, because how could she not be in the Justice League movie?
Oh boy, I don't know. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. That might just be like for official confirmations. I would be really surprised if Godot is not officially confirmed, but who the hell knows? I wouldn't go that far ahead with casting confirmations and that stuff. Like, we know that she's going to be in that movie. She's in her own movie the same year. If she's not in that movie, then something's fucked up.
So I think we both know a bit more about Justice League villains than we do about Wonder Woman villains outside of mythology. So if you had to guess, and this is a conversation you and I have probably had about 60 times in person. If you had to guess, who's the villain of Justice League?
It's hard to guess. I mean, just based on track record, I wouldn't be surprised if they go with Darkseid. I would rather see someone like Brainiac.
I think Brainiac would be the coolest choice, personally.
Yeah, because I think that would be really different. And here's the thing about if they went with Darkseid. Darkseid is the first threat that brings the Justice League together in the New 52 reboot from 3 years ago, which they also recently, just like a year ago, adapted into an animated movie. So if they did it again, you kind of run out of things to do with the same premise,
Yeah, it would almost just be the same exact movie as the animated movie, which is the same exact thing as the story arc.
And admittedly, the Justice League, all of these movies, they are playing catch-up with Marvel. So I feel like a lot of threats are going to be very reminiscent of what the Avengers faced, Mm-hmm. So I think even Brainiac is basically like Ultron. So we're going to be getting that after Marvel's already beat them to a similar punch. But I think that kind of like robot army versus led by a cold, detached being, I think that would be really fun to see.
Yeah, and it would let Snyder and Goyer do what they clearly want to do with these superheroes, which is let them kill things, because you can kill robots.
Yeah, it's totally fine if we watch Superman just rip heads off robots all day long.
Yeah, that's fine. Same way it's fine with, in the X-Men animated series from the 90s, with Wolverine going to town on Sentinels. It was the only thing he could really do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So I think that would be honestly the best way to go, because again, if they went with Darkseid, I feel like it would be just a way to try and beat Marvel to the punch, since Thanos is very similar to Darkseid, like they're very similar characters. It would feel kind of rushed and cheap to me. Plus, Darkseid is he's pretty much the big bad of the DC universe in a way. So going to him for number one I think it risks losing a lot of potential build-up.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Darkseid built up too. I think you and I agree there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is what I wanted to talk about when, like a few minutes ago, when I said I wanted to talk about this universe and origin stories. The fact that Justice League movie is coming before the Flash movie, before the Aquaman movie, before the Cyborg movie, and before the Green Lantern movie, and before the Shazam movie, means that I don't think this universe is going to do origin stories for them at all.
Well,
or if they do, they'll be very quick. They won't be a whole movie.
yeah, which I'm
go.
Like I think we get the formula for origin stories, you know? Like and even Marvel seems to be acknowledging that, because Ant-Man doesn't look like it'll be a traditional origin story. Like Hank Pym is an old guy, and he has already invented the Ant-Man suit and everything, and he just enlists this other dude to use it to go steal something. That's what it sounds like. And then Doctor Strange, I've heard rumors, isn't going to be an origin story, that it's going to start with him fully formed, which I think is the way to go. Like, we don't need to see like birth to death for these characters, you know? Like you can explain that stuff very quickly, very easily.
The first solo movie after Justice League, there's two in 2018. We don't know release dates yet, but it's The Flash and Aquaman. Now, the Aquaman will be a little bit different than The Flash, because this will be his third appearance, because he's going to be in Dawn of Justice. Assumably, he's going to be in the Justice League movie. And Aquaman's solo movie will be his third appearance, but Flash, it will be his second. Not that necessarily matters too much, but we'll at least have a little bit more of a base on Aquaman, right?
Which I think if you're gonna make an Aquaman movie, that's probably pretty smart. Like I think giving us a taste in Dawn of Justice to kind of establish a baseline of what he's gonna be like, because of any character in all of comics, Aquaman has the biggest hurdle to jump over in terms of preconceived ideas.
Yeah, rightly or mostly wrongly. Aquaman gets a lot of shit for being lame for whatever reason, but
it's because going all the way back to the Super Friends show. Yeah. But yeah, so I think two things I really like about the prospect of this Aquaman movie. One, like I mentioned before, is the casting of Jason Momoa. I think he's awesome, and I think it is kind of hilarious that they cast one of the most badass-looking humans that has ever lived as this character that a lot of people think of as a joke.
That is something I'm a little bit worried about, is if they try to go too extreme and like try too hard to make him like, oh, see, Aquaman's actually really cool.
I mean, the odds of that happening are like at least 89%. But you know what? I don't even care. Like, I'm not super attached to Aquaman, so if they make him a badass, I'm fine with it. Like, I would rather see that than another white dude, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really cool, and I think it is smart that they're kind of allowing themselves to lay a little bit more groundwork with that. Also with The Flash, he's on TV, so they probably don't need to spend as much time explaining his deal, because all his deal is he runs real fast, and we've seen his origin already.
That movie is going to be one of the most interesting, I think, at least how they're going to do it, because like we talked about last week, and like Jack just mentioned, The Flash is on a TV show right now, and assumably, I mean, I guess it's 4 years from now, who knows, but there's a good chance that he'll still be on TV when that movie comes out. I mean, yeah, it doesn't get canceled on the CW unless like only 10 people watch it. I mean, Supernatural is going to go on. This isn't even its last season; it's on season 10, and more people
this
watch.
Is the last one. Wow. Before we do a whole podcast about the CW,
again.
Well, I think Yeah, I think that is really interesting because they've already confirmed that their movie universe is going to be completely separate from their TV one, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes, I'm
that'll
pretty
be
sure they have.
really interesting because we've already seen one instance of a superhero appearing both on TV and on in a movie, which was when Superman Returns came out. Smallville was on, but the difference there being that Smallville, he wasn't suiting up. You know, like it was all it was supposed to be like the pre-Superman stories of Clark Kent. So you can kind of get away with that a little bit. Um, but this, I mean, the Flash is fully formed on the show. Like he has the costume. He runs real fast, and so I'm curious to see how the movie approaches it. Like what it's going to be different. We already know who's playing the Flash. It's his name is Ezra Miller. He looks pretty cool. I think that should be neat.
Yeah.
He looks.
Sorry, go ahead.
He looks significantly younger than almost all of the other characters, with the exception maybe being Cyborg, and I think that makes sense. Like I think having a couple younger guys that can be kind of our like audience entry into this stuff, like it makes sense. Like Aquaman, just looking at the guy, he's not going to be freaking out about about Superman, you know?
Yeah. Flash will probably like be geeking out about being around Superman. Aquaman will not.
Right.
So,
yeah, so I think that should be pretty cool. And plus, I love the Flash, and I think giving him a big budget, like a big blockbuster budget, is really exciting. Like I think we could get some really cool stuff.
yeah, like I mentioned this to you last night when I was watching this week's episode of The Flash. I actually think the speed effects look pretty good on that show, and it's a CW show. So I can't wait to see how they're going to do it on a big budget, action superhero movie. And I mean, also with 4 years worth of special effects improvement.
Yeah, and because we've seen, we saw a lot of super speed stuff in Man of Steel, like the way Feora sped around from soldier to soldier, and that looked awesome. And I'm really excited to see, more stuff like that, and also to see some of the Flash's more unique uses of his powers. If you know me at all, and if you happen to be, say, the writer of the comic I work on, you know that I really love weird uses of super speed. Like, the Flash can vibrate his molecules so that he can run through solid objects, and he can spin his arms around super fast, make like gusts of wind and things, and I love that stuff. It's so awesome, and I want to see that in live action real bad.
And perhaps in a certain comic.
Yes, in a certain comic drawn by me.
We obviously the Flash. We only found out that Ezra Miller was cast in the Flash like 2 weeks ago, but other than that, we know nothing. We just know he's starring in it. So, do you think he's Barry, Wally, or Bart, or Jay?
Well, he's not Jay Garrick. I think the best choice would be Wally.
I agree.
I think they have the opportunity, because he's younger, so that leads me to believe Wally. I think that they could play with some really cool legacy ideas if they use Wally, as opposed to Barry, who's the first, So with Wally, who was his former sidekick and stuff, you can... And that might be kind of tough. I'm not sure how it would work in the established universe since Superman's the first to show up, but I would really like to see something like that, as opposed to two different Barrys in different live-action adaptations,
Yeah.
I feel like that would be kind of the safe, just run-of-the-mill way to go about it.
I see what you did.
I really, you mentioned to me someone was suggesting that it could be Bart, and I don't like that idea, because I think Bart is one of those comic concepts that's just so overcomplicated that I don't want to see the Flash's first live-action movie be about a kid who came back from the future to meet his great grandfather, who was the Flash. You know?
Yeah. It would not work. Unless they cast somebody else as the Flash in the Justice League movie, and then he dies or something. Which, who knows? It's possible.
But yeah, I think the potential of Barry, of Wally, and hinting at this legacy he's trying to live up to, I think would be the more interesting and the more unique way to go about it.
So we don't have a ton of time left, so let's just try to burn through these last 5 real quick. Aquaman comes out in 2018, stars Jason Momoa. It almost has to be about him versus Ocean Master, right? For
Ocean Master or Black Manta.
Which would you prefer?
I'm not sure I have a huge attachment to either one.
I would say Black Manta, just because same thing with the Justice League movie being about Darkseid. I think the first arc of the New 52 Aquaman was him versus Ocean Master, and this Justice League Throne of Atlantis movie that's coming out in a few months is an adaptation of that. So it might seem like a third adaptation of that story.
Yeah, that's true. I think, plus Ocean Master is his half brother who turns evil, and I think that would be a good, a fun thing that you could build up to,
Yeah, have Orm be in Aquaman, maybe help him out, establish some sort of conflict, and then blow it up in Aquaman 2.
Yeah.
Shazam comes out in 2019. All we know is that The Rock plays Black Adam. So we don't know who... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm really excited for this one. I think Captain Marvel is a really fun character, and I think just including The Rock, the dude cannot do anything without kind of looking like a goofball, like a fun goofball. So I feel like that sets a particular tone for this movie. I think it's going to be fun, and I think that's the way you have to do Shazam.
Yeah. Of all the movies that Goyer and Snyder have to stay away from, it's Shazam. Because this movie has to be fun.
I hope wherever they are working on Justice League, I hope Shazam is filming on the entire opposite side of the globe.
That is one thing. There is a good chance of that, because Justice League Part 2, which we know Snyder and Goyer are doing, also comes out in 2019. So
yes.
There's no way they could be working on both of those.
Which is a quick turnaround. Between Avengers movies, it'll be, what is that? I guess that's 3 years.
Yeah, this is a difference of 2.
Okay, so I suppose never mind then.
So Justice League Part 2, another movie we know nothing about, and it's impossible to guess because, we can't guess who's going to be the villain in Part 2, because I don't know why this list calls them Part 1 and Part 2. I don't know.
Yeah, my list doesn't say that. It just says Justice League and Justice League 2.
So it's impossible to guess who the villain is going to be, because we don't know who the villain is going to be for the first one. So let's just skip that. 2020.
Yeah, I have no idea what this Cyborg movie could be about, but I think it's exciting that they are giving Cyborg his own movie, even though they've never had the confidence to give him his own comic book.
Yeah,
I think
that is incredibly surprising. I mean, Cyborg has always been a team member. He was the leader of the Teen Titans for a while, and now he is on the Justice League in the comics. So it is interesting, because I don't think he has... Obviously, a large part of this is the fact that he's never had a solo series, but does he even have any specific enemies?
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I don't really know, though. To be frank, but I mean, it's like you said. He's only ever been in the context of a team, of the Teen Titans or the Justice League. So I don't think he has any unique rogues of his own.
So that's by far. I mean, I think we've said this for 3 out of the 5 movies we've talked about, but it's going to be very interesting because it's totally uncharted water for the character.
Yeah, I think it's I think the Cyborg movie is kind of a perfect example of what is exciting about this list, which is that DC and Warner Brothers are doing different things. It seems like they're taking risks, and they're going all in with, diverse heroes and kind of unique structures in terms of how they're building their universe. And it could blow up in their face and it could all be awful, but it could be really fun. Like, it could be really exciting, and it could be a refreshing change of pace from DC's recent fare.
Definitely. Although the comics are kind of starting to change too, it seems.
Yes.
The second and final movie of 2020, and the final movie on this list, is the Green Lantern movie. Obviously, Green Lantern was made into a movie, what, 2009?
I think it was 10.
Okay. But so it's been a few years, and by the time this movie comes out, it'll be like a decade. That movie was not well received, the original. Starred, what's the guy's name? Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
As Hal Jordan. But what'll be interesting is how they react to that failure in this particular Green Lantern movie.
Yeah, like what lessons they take from it, and what ways they try and set themselves apart. Because, as we know from Man of Steel, that could backfire horribly.
Yeah, part of Jack and I's theory, and I think also the theory of more educated people than us, is that Green Lantern, which if you watch it, it feels like a Marvel movie in the sense that it's very comical.
It has a blend of humor with action and drama.
Which that movie failed horribly, both at the box office and critically. So, Man of Steel being super grim and dark could be seen as a reaction to that failure.
I think Man of Steel is also a reaction to the failure of Superman Returns, which didn't have enough action, so they packed this one with action, and that's how we get the horrible 9/11 imagery.
Okay, yeah, trying not to fall back into that topic that we covered 45 minutes ago. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Green Lantern. Hopefully he makes a lot of constructs, he or she. Hopefully It's entertaining, and by entertaining I mean funny. So, I mean, fingers crossed. Obviously, we're looking at movies that come out 6 years from now, so it's hard to say anything concrete other than abstract hopes.
But it's cause for optimism in a time where recent years have shaken my faith in DC Comics and Warner Brothers.
Now, there are two movies that are not on this list. One is a Batman standalone movie, and the other is the second Superman standalone movie, which obviously are going to happen. I mean...
Yeah, that's money on the table.
Yeah. But we don't know when, so it's another thing it's impossible to guess about. Hopefully the Batman movie tries to do something new with Batman.
Robin!
Yeah. Please, God, have some of the Batman family. I would kill for it to be like a Batman family movie. If I ever see Batgirl in a movie, I will die happy.
Well, you want to...
Okay, well...
You want to watch Batman and Robin when you come back for Thanksgiving?
I'll rephrase that.
Don't.
Batgirl in a good movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, good. If there's a good Robin, a good Nightwing, a good Batgirl, I will be so happy.
Oh yeah, I would lose my mind if they made that movie.
And we should point out, there are apparently rumors that Carrie Kelly, who's a female Robin from The Dark Knight Returns, might be in Dawn of Justice, which is taking heavily from Dark Knight Returns. So,
yeah, which would be pretty sweet, honestly. Like, when they were first reporting rumors that movie was going to be heavily influenced by Dark Knight Returns, I think universally we all took that as bad news. But I think the prospect of Carrie Kelly showing up, as Robin in these movies would be pretty awesome. I think that would be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. As long as the movie doesn't suck.
Yeah,
Which,
well, you win some, you lose some.
yeah. Alright, so we are quite a bit into this episode, so we're gonna cut it here. I mean, we're pretty much out of stuff to talk about anyway.
Yes, we have.
Um,
We did.
so I had been planning this episode even before we recorded the last one, so that's why we've had two in 2 weeks. Um, Jack and I have an idea, more like I have an idea that I'm inflicting upon Jack, that we are going to read a 2008 miniseries about Big Hero 6,
Uh,
the Disney Pixar movie that's coming out in 2 weeks. And then we're gonna read it and then watch the movie and talk about it. So obviously that isn't gonna happen for 3 weeks because we can't really do that until the movie comes out. Jack and I also have an idea of something we might do over Thanksgiving break with our little sister Gina. Another thing that we obviously can't do until I am back in Akron. So we don't have anything immediately planned for the next 2 weeks. If you have anything you want us to talk about, comic, pretty mostly comic book related, comics themselves, movies, TV shows, whatever. Send me an email. I'll put my email in the show notes. Yeah, other than that, we'll for sure see you in about a month. I'm Dominic Cioli, the associate editor of the Loyola Phoenix. This week we had our first special issue of the year about money. A lot of good. I think it was a really, really good issue. By now, most of the stuff should be online. Check it out. You can also pick it up if you if you go to Loyola. You can pick it up around campus. Next week we're doing a special issue about the election, which should also be pretty good. Jack, what about you?
I am Jack Cioli. I am the artist on Atlas, which you can find at atlascomic.com. Our first 2 issues are available to read for free online. And I am finishing up the third, which we're shooting to have on there by Halloween.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you again soon.